All right, how you doing? This is Cody with the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. Commanders are now officially 1-1. We took a pretty tough L against the Detroit Lions, man. Shout out to Dan Campbell and just that team, man. I'm Ross St. Brown. Torched us, man. Dude's putting himself in some pretty elite company with his touches and his production. A lot of people had a lot to say about him coming out of USC, about him just being a possession receiver. He's a dog. I'm pretty much just going to get right into this pod. There were some good things, some bad things that I want to address. Another thing I want to say for Detroit before I really highlight, the Commanders is Jared Goff, man. Jared Goff is really doing the job in there, man. And Dan Campbell has his team believing. Jared Goff was never a bad quarterback. Jared Goff might not be the guy that, is going to take you to a Super Bowl unless you have like a super elite level roster like he had with the Rams. But he very much gives that team a chance to win, man. And he's playing with belief, man. He's protecting that football. And honestly, to tell the truth, man, he's playing just as good as any quarterback in the league right now, man. That team and that offense is humming, man. They're putting up good points. You can say whatever about where the points came from against Philly. And maybe they did struggle with us a little bit in the third quarter, but when it came to the fourth quarter, they made the plays that it took to win. Whether they took their foot off, the gas on defense or not, man, Jared Goff put them in a position to win with that run game. It works, man. They're playing team football on all three levels, man. They beat us on special teams. They beat us on offense and defense, man, and we're going to get to that. To the Commanders' point, I'm going to start with the good. I'm going to start with the offense. There's not much you can say after a loss, man. You got to learn from some things, and a lot of times the bad is what you want to see when you lose. You want to know where it's coming from so you can address it and try to build on that. As football players, as coaches, and individuals, man, we have a little bit of an aging staff, but this is a pretty young offense. Scott Turner is doing a pretty good job with what I think he has asset-wise on this offense, man. We have a lot of mid-round players. We don't have a lot of high-round players anywhere on this offense. We got Jahan Dotson in the first round this year. That's really the only first round pick I can think about outside of Carson Wentz. That's not a homegrown player. Sam Cosmi, round 2, he's your highest player on the offensive line as far as round and investment. Honestly, Wentz is playing great, and Jahan Dotson, man, he's scoring touchdowns right now. I'd like to see him get a little bit better in the yardage. Like to see them get a little bit more creative with him on offense as far as how they get him released, because in the Detroit game with physical corners that want to play press man, Jahan Dotson is one part of his game that he's going to have to develop going into, year 2, year 3, and year 4 as a pro, because clearly, his ball skills and hands and just the route running concepts and the, working his speed through different variants of the route and different parts. He's got all that, man. He's a consummate pro when it comes to that. So right now, for having an impact as a rookie, man, you want to keep him probably in motion. You really want to do a lot of the things that they're doing with Curtis Samuel, bringing him in motion, pre-play. You're going to want to do a lot of that with Jahan Dotson, trying to get him off the football. The good is, Curtis Samuel is one of the goods, man. He's one of the players you got to highlight right now for this offense, man. It's nice to see him healthy. It's nice to see him be able to take this usage so far. It's nice to see him impact the game in the run and the pass. He's even out there blocking, man. These wide receivers look gelled. These wide receivers look like they're working pretty good together, and they're actually, in my opinion, only going to improve, man. Terry McLaurin needs to get a lot more involved with the offense. That's going to have to be something that Scott Turner dials up. Which is probably going to, ride into some of Curtis Samuel's usage. But, Curtis Samuel, the threat of using him is going to impact other players. So, you don't do anything differently in that regard. You just make sure that you have Wentz focus. You draw up different routes for things that Terry McLaurin, specializes in, which is pretty much everything. The dude's a really good all-around football player. I think Jahan Dotson probably has the better raw skill set, but, there's things that Terry McLaurin brings to his game that Jahan Dotson's probably never going to bring to his game, and, that's that physical element. He can get off press. Wentz resiliency, man, to come out in an NFL game to be down 22 points in the first half, you pretty much go in as a coaching staff and you say, okay, we're down. We're probably going to lose this game, unless, we get a bunch of turnovers or something in the second half. But it is about making adjustments. Is about, coming out and being ready to play in the second half, and it's basically about winning the second half. Well, if you go off of points, we won the second half. Still had the same lapses we had in the first half as far as just honestly big plays killed us, man. They did not sustain drives against us. What they did was 30-yard this, 40-yard that, 50-yard this, missed tackles that, man. And that's really where they took us out, man. I mean, I don't think the defensive scheme was so much bad as it was just, man, like one player getting lost in the defense, man. You got DeAndre Swift catching a screen pass, like basically, Montez Sweat and Jamin Davis both attacked Jared Goff, man, full speed, and nobody really dropped back on DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift turned around, caught the ball, landed on his ass, and, next thing you know, he's standing back up, running in for a touchdown 25 yards away from, where he caught the ball. That's things on defense, man, that communication tightens up, man. Coaching tightens up. You're supposed to have communication like on all three levels of the defense, man. And when I watch us, I don't see our cornerbacks talking very much, man. When they're lined up on the same sides, when you just like Amon St. Brown said in his press conference, man, he's like, what we see on film is Washington's cornerbacks, when you do stack alignments, they get lost. Well, why did they get lost? They're not communicating. That's not a coaching thing. That is a player thing. I will get into the coaching thing later on Jack Del Rio. That is, we're talking about the good on offense. Gibson holding the football. We're going to knock him if he doesn't, so I'm going to bring it up when he does. The running game wasn't great. It's not nearly enough. I think in a couple weeks when Robinson is back, God bless, he's healthy after everything that happened to him, and he's actually going to continue to be able to live his dream out as a running back in the NFL. So best of luck to him. But I think he's going to open up this offense in a way that we really need, because this team is not really doing anything up the middle. They're not really gaining many yards outside wide either. Gibson has been effective in that role. McKissick's gotten some decent runs here and there, but nothing consistent, man, and you gotta have consistency. The offensive bad stuff, man. I'm just gonna say the O-line in general. Everybody looks to the 3 sacks that Hutchinson got. Almost had a fourth one. Pressure's pressure, and sacks are sacks, but on the one that Cosme gave up, he held him for 3.5 seconds. Carson Wentz, the pocket broke down on him. He tried to bail out, pretty much ran right into Hutchinson. I'm not taking that away. This isn't a slight. Hutchinson had a day. It's not a knock on Cosme either. I mean, Cosme did his job. Wentz, the time clock went off. He tried to reposition himself and, start rolling out. Hutchinson just happened to be there. That's one of the sacks. But all in all, as an offensive line, man, not good enough. Pass blocking or run blocking. Running inside the tackles, again, this goes back to what I was saying about Robinson. I think he's going to be much more effective in the run game, up the middle, up the gut. Detroit beat us. They gashed us up the gut. I'm going to get into that in the defensive side of this assessment. Realistically, in fact, actually, I'm just going to break this down. I'm just going to pull this over here and put this up. I'm just going to play some highlights, from the Detroit-Washington game. I think it'll be a lot more entertaining than watching me, actually. So we'll put this on. Anyway, basically what we're saying about the offensive line, offensive line wasn't good enough. The running inside and outside of the tackles, realistically, the only unit right now that is functioning at a NFL level, I think, are your tight ends and your wide receivers, your skill position players besides outside of running back. Carson Wentz, like I said, the resiliency for him to even be able to bring the team back, put him in a position, he threw another interception today, but, came back on the next drive and didn't let it bother him, man. Like, you're starting to see some of the things Wentz was being knocked for in his other 2 stops. You're starting to see him show that maybe he's grown and matured a little bit. Maybe he needed all these moves to get to a point where he's matured because he realizes this might be his last stop. But you clearly see the talent. You see the weapons. He does process slow. This has always been a thing with Carson Wentz. He does hold the ball. Really gives you a chance to attack vertically down the field. We haven't taken advantage of that. We have definitely had it taken advantage of on us so far this season, which, as you're watching right now, DeAndre Swift running down the field. We're getting gashed, and that's really what's going to bring me to the defense. There are some good things on offense. I think it can only grow from here, as I said on the last pod. So let's go to defense. Defensive good. Derek Forrest, man. Again, Derek Forrest, this is 2 weeks in a row. He looks like the guy. He looks like the one guy on the back end, like Cameron Crowe used to look like, who is communicating to the defense, who is like kind of putting guys in position on the back end. St. Juice dropped an interception, man, but I saw him and William Jackson, man. Like it's no mystery to me that William Jackson has a communication issue when I see St. Juice line up in the slot on Fuller's side, and him and Fuller can cross receivers, and they can let the receivers cross and stay on their guy. When I watch William Jackson and St. Juice on their side, when the receivers cross, man, both of them get lost, or one of them gets lost, and they cover the same guy. So it's like it's definitely communication that I see on the back end. Again, this is not all Jack Del Rio. It's not all coaching. It is on the players. And then the other good player that I would say is, again, Daron Payne, 2 weeks in a row. Daron Payne has been the consistent push. I see Montez Sweat getting a lot of pressures getting home. I know he's being keyed on the outside. This team misses Chase Young, man. You can just see it on the film, man. Chase Young was an integral part of what this team does, man. Chase Young is just that guy that has that relentless motor and has the talent and ability to get home, on a down in and down out basis. And, now Montez Sweat's being keyed upon, like Chase Young was, and now you're seeing him not being as effective as far as getting home and getting the numbers, but you still see him creating the pressures and doing things athletically, running plays down from behind. So I think Derek Forrest, Montez Sweat, and Daron Payne have been some of the good. Jonathan Allen was clearly injured like this past week. You could just see it, man. Like you could just see him just a little bit slow off the ball, not as effective in the run game. I'm not going to knock him. John Allen is a leader on this team. And I mentioned Montez Sweat with the good. I do need to see more. I do need to see those sacks. I need to start seeing them things be registered. But I'm not going to knock them on a game where this team just clearly from the get-go, man, just did not have what it took. They attacked us right up the gut. They ran the ball right up the gut on us. If you can't stop the run up the gut, you're probably going to lose the game. We lost the game. Every time they focused on running it up the gut, they gave up. We gave up yards. The defense was a little bit resilient, man. They kept fighting. St. Juice almost had an interception. You got to catch that ball. But, again, when momentum and things are just not bouncing your way, man, sometimes the ball just bounces the other way for the other team, and it definitely happened that way for us. To the bad, man, I'm just going to start this with Jack Del Rio. I've definitely brought it up a couple times as far as what the players are doing wrong. Here's what I see when I watch this defense, man. I see Jamin Davis out there. I see him flash. I saw him flash a little bit towards the end of the year last year. I saw him flash in this game, rushing the passer. I saw him blow up a couple plays in the backfield in the run on his way to the quarterback. And honestly, on a screenplay where his responsibility might have been to drop back with DeAndre Swift on the play where he fell down and got up off his butt and ran in for a touchdown in the fourth quarter to really seal the game. He and Montez Sweat, the linebackers, just like the defensive backs, man, the defensive backs have to communicate. So do the defensive front, the front seven, man. If the linebackers and the defensive line aren't in sync, it's not going to work. Players look lost. Players look lost out there. And, Del Rio can be very right when he calls out Jamin Davis, but you just don't do that publicly, man. Jack Del Rio to me is not my guy. He's not a guy that I'm very sold on. I've just, I've watched it again and again, whether it was with the Raiders, Jacksonville. It doesn't really matter. Every stop that he goes to, he has a top 5, top 10 defense early on, and then they slowly digress year after year. And that trend is continuing here. So you pretty much are what you are in this league. I'm not going to bash Del Rio. I pretty much give him a 2 to 6 game window if I'm Ron Rivera to clean this up. I say 2 games because if we go out and shit the bed against the Philadelphia Eagles this upcoming week and then we get our asses handed to us by Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys, I'd say he has to go. But more on the Ron Rivera side of all this is I honestly think that he would give him 6 games as long as those 2 games, just like I said, aren't a blowout. But it's time for Rivera to really make these decisions of what is it going to take to go forward, because I think Rivera has the time. If you're Dan Snyder, you're not going to get anybody better at this point. unless you just luck into a Patrick Mahomes or that stud Josh Allen quarterback, and you hit the lottery in the draft. But to be real, is there is improvement throughout the roster. I think what you're seeing from Ron Rivera, as a front office standpoint, is they are getting talented. They're not mortgaging the future just to patch a hole for this year with some kind of veteran player. They're not in salary cap hell. I mean, I know the salary cap's going to be a little bit tight next year, and they're going to have to work it. But I mean, that's what good teams do. But you also should be able to get younger again in the draft, and continue to assess what you need going forward. We still haven't even made our the verdict is still out on Carson Wentz, man. It's week 2. We have a big week ahead of us as far as the Carson Wentz thing goes. Stopping the run on defense, man, it's something that's plagued this team. Under Del Rio, a former linebacker, having a defense that bleeds up the middle. You know what, man? With all these assets that we've invested in the first round, you can call out Jamin Davis all you want, but you got Deron Payne, Jamin Davis, Cole Holcomb, Montez Sweat. You have Chase Young when he's healthy. This team is still bled yards up the middle. It didn't really matter. That to me speaks coaching. It's a continuous issue. It's not just this game's issue. It's something that with the investments that we've made on this defensive front seven, and even the amount of money that we have on that side of the ball. I mean, you can't bleed up the middle. We continue to bleed up the middle. That's a Del Rio issue to me. The D-backs, I mean, honestly, William Jackson is kind of frustrating, man. Especially when you see him and St. Juice stacked up on top of each other, and then they both take the same wide receiver multiple times, and they both left Amon-Ra St. Brown open multiple times, whether it was Jackson's responsibility or St. Juice. St. Juice is a young player, so I'm going to tend to lean on the veteran more so than not. But credit to Detroit, man. Credit to their offensive game plan, man. They found openings and they attacked them, and honestly, it worked. They jumped out to a 22 lead, and no matter how close we got to the game, they kept in control. That's a team that's clearly changing their culture, and I think I'm very impressed with that. Hats off to Detroit, man. That was a good, hard-fought game, man. We did everything we could to come back. They did everything they could to keep us from coming back, and they did what they were supposed to do. They held on to a lead from halftime, and they won the game. Won the turnover battle, and they held the ball, man. They did a really good job, man. They were explosive. They were, like I said, they didn't sustain many drives, but they did what they needed to do to win the football game. And their defense hunkered down in situations and did enough to win the football game, and they won the special teams battle. So when you win on all 3 phases of the game, hold the time of possession, and you win on special teams. I mean, dude, I don't know what else to say, man. You're not going to win many games. So hats off to them. As a Commanders fan, we got to get better. We're on to a divisional game against the Eagles, man, and we all see how the Eagles are going up. As a scout, as somebody who really, really watches a ton of college football, I really wanted to get into some names and some players, that are on my list of guys just from this week that, from the last couple of weeks that I've really, really noticed. The UNLV quarterback, man, he's 6'5", a little bit slight. Kind of reminds me of a left-handed RG3. The guy's pretty effective, man. It's pretty impressive what he's been able to do so far this year. He's a sophomore. He's not eligible to come out, so I like to try to keep it on players that are draft eligible. So let's go with player Devin Achane, the Texas A&M running back, man. A lot of people would probably tell you that the best running back is out of Texas. Bijan Robinson. I would tend to agree with you. But I think Achane is going to also be. I think he's like 1B. I think they both have very similar skill sets as far as in between the tackles and outside the tackles. They both can catch the ball very well. I think Achane is the more explosive athlete, maybe not as consistent in between the tackles as Robinson, but I think they both have a very diverse skill set, and I think Achane is right there. The last couple years of watching Texas A&M, he's been their best player to me, and that hasn't changed. They also have a nose tackle, number 5. His last name's Turner. Man, this guy gets off the ball. He is a freak off the ball. I don't really know what year he is. I got him written down as my notes from watching the last 2 Texas A&M games against Miami and against Appalachian State, I've really been keying in on them this year. They've been a really fun team to watch as far as the North Carolina game, the A&M game, and then watching them play Troy, man, that was pretty exciting. So from App State, man, I got to say, man, Deshaun Davis, man, number 17. I say he's almost in the mold of Jahan Dotson, very explosive, a guy that probably is better suited in the slot, but can line up out wide. He's their go-to guy at receiver, man, and they also have a running back, number 6, Peoples. He has been carrying and closing out games for Appalachian State, man, against some really, really powerful teams, man, and very impressed with them and what they're doing. Another player that I wanted to kind of highlight from a smaller school, from doing some homework on DJU from Clemson, the quarterback. They were playing Furman, man. I noticed their defensive end, number 93, man. This guy is he comes off the edge very well, man. He's a pretty explosive guy, man. When you think about Furman, you're talking about a guy who's not going to get drafted round 1, round 2, more than likely, unless you just test through the roof and have an amazing Senior Bowl. That's the kind of, you have to have the kind of off season, to get you there. But as of right now, I mean, this guy's probably a mid to late round pick, and he's going to make somebody's roster, and he's going to make somebody's scouting department look very, very good. Finding him again, if you ever find yourself watching some Furman, I really enjoy lower level college football. It's fine. It's fun really looking for these guys that just stand out. Game after game, play after play, and then when they line up against the good teams like a Clemson, they still stand out. They show they belong, and that's what you're really looking for as a scout. Tony Grimes, the UNC cornerback, man, this is a 3-year. This is a 3-year guy for me too. A guy that I've been on since he first got to UNC. Doesn't have no interceptions with UNC, so that's something that these are the type of questions that are going to come out in the scouting process, man. How come you don't have no INTs? Well, I tell you what, man. Like every time the ball is thrown Grimes' way, man, he gets pass breakups, and it's because he's right where he's supposed to be. Not a lot of balls come his way, and honestly, man, quarterbacks do not try this guy because he's a very good wide receiver, man. Like I said, man, I mean, if you're not scoring touchdowns against the kid, if you can't get open against the kid, he's not going to have a lot of interceptions when the ball's not coming his way, but maybe 3 or 4 times a game, and he's breaking up 2 or 3 of them. He's doing his job very well, and honestly, man, when you're in position, eventually interceptions start coming your way. I'm sure he'll get an interception before his career is over in UNC. But Tony Grimes, man, he's a very good cornerback prospect for me, man. Another little bit lower level player that I want to shout out is Ashton Hawkins, number 2 from Texas State. Was watching the Texas State Baylor game, man. I've been doing a lot of work on Baylor, man. Got some names from Baylor that you probably want to keep an eye on. Ashton Hawkins from Texas State, man. He's definitely more of a slot guy in the NFL. Man, he's got hands, man. He's just a feisty wide receiver, man. He honestly reminds me a little bit of a Shi Smith or Deebo Samuel back at the South Carolina, in that kind of mold. A little bit less handing off to him than maybe the Deebo Smith, Shi Smith thing, but very, kind of similar in build as far as that, a little bit, like the 5'11", 5'11", 5'10", not too thick of a build. Deebo Samuel definitely changed that in the league. Shi Smith has still stayed a little bit slighter. Just, you know what we're talking about when we talk about slot receiver, man. Quick, shifty guys, good hands, reliable, moves the chains constantly. Doesn't matter if you line them up out wide or inside in college. In the college game, man, they make their mark, man. They make the plays in front of them, man. They show up against higher level opponents when they're playing on a lower level program like that. And honestly, Ashton Hawkins, man, big shout out to him. The Baylor quarterback, man, Ben Sharpen. So this guy, man, he's pretty impressive, man. Number 12. He has the arm and feet discipline of an NFL quarterback, man. Has NFL caliber arm. He's mobile. Honestly, man, I've seen him this year looking very good. Honestly, I think as the year goes on, man, this guy's going to start getting a little bit more pub. I think he has the game, man. I mean, again, you got to translate from that type of offense to the NFL. So, I mean, it's definitely some things you're gonna look for. For him to improve. from Baylor, Mike Harris, number 16, and then Wilcox, number 20 from Baylor. I mean, these guys are hard-nosed football players, man. These guys are instinctual, man. If you watch Baylor's secondary, these guys communicate. Honestly, the same thing with Texas, man. These guys are being coached up very well. They're communicating. They're playing over their 5-star, whatever they came in as, from the high school 24/7 ratings. Like I said, 16 and number 20 for Baylor, man. Check these guys out. Baylor's been doing some really good things with their D-backs here lately, especially these hybrid players, their safeties, the way that they work them in and out on tight ends, highlight them on receivers in the slot. They're very versatile players, man. One of my favorite players last year was from Baylor at number 8, man. I know if you watched the pod, then you know who I'm talking about. How about number 99, Jack Sullivan from Purdue, a defensive tackle, man. Honestly, it's funny because he got penalized about three times in the game that I was watching him in. But this guy's a run stuffer, man. This guy's like a mid to late round run stuffer, man, that you get for 4 years on a rookie deal, man. He's just, he's going to come in there, he's going to stop the run. He's not going to make much in the pass, but he can push the pocket and collapse the pocket down. And if you have an injury in front of him, he's definitely going to do those type of things, man. He's just the type of nose tackle that you need in your rotation, man. He's just a big body guy. Got a little suddenness off the line, definitely not, the explosive athlete of, like a Vita Vea or, a Deron Payne, those type of guys in that mold. But, man, he's just a solid run stuffer, man. He definitely does his job, man. Comes off of blocks well, sheds blocks well, uses his hands and gets good leverage on offensive linemen, and then knows how to just throw him to the side when the run game comes his way, man. He's number 99 from Purdue, definitely a pretty good player, man. There's a couple LSU players I really noticed, man. Josh Williams, number 27, man. This guy's a feisty little running back, man. I mean, when I say little, man, he's 5'10", 5'9", a little bit thicker build, but man, he's definitely looking for contact. Then number 8 for LSU at wide receiver, man. This guy's definitely a dog, man. Kind of in the mold of a Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's kind of funny, man. He's actually kind of built like him. Similar speed, I think. Just goes up and gets the ball, man. Runs really, really crisp routes. Finds openings, third downs, man. This guy, honestly, was a big reason why LSU came back and won their game this past week. Then another game that to the Miami U, man, to my college football team. I think Tyler Van Dyke is an NFL quarterback, man. He's definitely showing all the things. I'm just going to highlight him for a second before I get into these last couple names. Tyler Van Dyke. This guy is throwing the ball to receivers that are not catching the ball. He is putting the ball right where it needs to be. I'm not saying he's not missing some throws. I'm not saying there's not some footwork things, but he does line up under center. He's very comfortable doing that. He's not the most mobile guy. I think that's where he's going to fall behind Levis and like the other top guys in this class. But I think you're going to get a player that can move enough. He can move enough to run a modern day NFL, zone read system. He will tuck the ball. He will hold it. And then another player from Miami U is DJ Ivey, number 8. This guy's length is ridiculous, man, at cornerback, man. This guy does not wrap when you see it, like the receiver, running on a slot and he's in the trail position, man. He doesn't even wrap and gets his arms in front of the ball, man. Broke up like 5 or 6 passes I saw against some pretty good receivers in the A&M game. Really knows how to use his length. Pretty good hips for a guy that is coming out. That is as long and lean as he is. Another player from Miami is Leonard Taylor, man, number 56, the edge from Miami. He's wow, man. He's a wow athlete, man. He jumps off the tape. They can line him up inside. They can line him up outside. He does both of those. Similar to the boy Phillips that came out a couple years ago from Miami U. Russo. He's a little bit shorter than Russo, not as long, not that type of athlete as far as that build, but Leonard Taylor definitely has long arms, just a little bit more compact, but explosive, man. He's very explosive, and he knows how to use his size and length, to his advantage, man. He gets really low on the dips, knows how to double move, knows how to spin, man. He's showing a lot of moves already as a college player, and that's what you really want to see, is a guy that can add things to his repertoire to get home to the quarterback, man, because ultimately sacking the quarterback is a very important thing in this league. again, these are just some of the players that I've noticed over the last couple weeks, man. I got a lot of notes on a lot of other players. I'm going to try to like break some of those to you guys, as they come, as I'm really like, breaking down other games and really making sure that I'm not just saying something off of one game. I got to check my notes from years prior and cross reference. But these are guys that I've definitely had notes on previous to this, that have wowed me in situations previously to this year that have jumped out off the tape again to me this year. Again, man, I think I will say this, man. I was saying this last year. I think Levis is gonna make his case for the number one spot this year, over Stroud and Bryce Young. I love all three of these guys, man. All three of these guys have amazing talent. It's way early in the process for me to really, I haven't done my homework on these guys personality wise. Listening to them in interviews talk about what drives them, what's important to them. I haven't graded my grades, but I think Levis is going to be up there, the Kentucky quarterback, by the time this is all said and done. And yeah, man. I mean, I really want to do a lot more work on these cornerbacks, man, because I really do love Tony Grimes. Like I said, I'm going to keep doing work on Ivy out of Miami U. These guys that are definitely very talented individuals, man. Also, Trayvon Mullins out there in Indiana, man. He's been rock solid for the last two and a half years. So again, this is a very good cornerback class, man. You got the LSU boy. You got some talent, man. But for the Commanders, I look at the offensive line, I look at the linebacker position, I look at cornerback, man. This team's history, we've always had really good left tackle play, all the way back, dating back to the Hogs, Chris Samuels, Trent Williams. It's kind of hard not having that level player on the offensive line right now as a fan. So, offensive line is definitely something that if you get the value there, you run that pick and you don't even think about it, man. Protecting your quarterback is key. Being able to open up holes in the run game is key. Positional value is probably going to be the most, like I said, unless one of these quarterbacks fall, you got Wentz here, the jury's still out, we'll know more by the offseason, but Wentz doesn't stop me from taking the top guy or the top guy on my board if he's available and you don't trade up for him or whatever it is. If the status quo, you're trying to look for another position, but linebacker and cornerback, man, it's going to be two pivotal positions for this defense in this offseason, man, that realistically is going to shape Ron Rivera's future going forward with this team, because I think Ron Rivera has done enough to warrant himself another offseason already, no matter how the season ends because of injury or whatever could possibly go wrong at this point, man. Short of losing the locker room, I think Ron Rivera is safe. I wouldn't do anything drastic when it comes to that. Again, like I said, Wentz's resiliency has been tough so far this year. And I'm pretty impressed with him. I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen so far. We'll see what happens. As the season goes on, we'll see. We'll see what happens, and the jury's still out. See if he can hold up for 17 games. If he can't, we'll see who comes in. If this coaching staff wanted to give Sam Howell a shot over Taylor Heineke, knowing what Taylor Heineke is, I think a lot of that has to do with the record that you have if Wentz gets hurt or anything like that. But Wentz has 17 games, no matter what for me. I mean, like I said, unless barring injury. If it's the end of the season and you're kind of out of playoff position, man, I'd run with Sam Howell just to see what the kid's got, because then you might be in the market for quarterback coming this offseason. Like there's quite a few on the market. It's looking like they're going to be in the draft next year. Like I've mentioned with Levis, Van Dyke, Stroud, and Young. I mean that's my top four right now. So. And honestly, there's some other guys that are really, really pushing to be up in that list too, man. Some pretty impressive quarterbacks in the league, or coming into the league this next couple years. So again, we're going to continue to watch college tape. We're going to keep breaking these guys down. We're going to keep bringing that to you, along with assessments for the Commanders week in, week out. So like I said, we're going to Philly. Philly's coming here next week, man. Some of the keys of the game, man, is going to be shutting down AJ Brown, man, or trying to do your best shutting down. The three-headed monster as far as DJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Devontae Smith, man. These are all three guys that, can go off at any given time, man. If your linebackers or your safeties are off on Goedert, man, he will eat you up. And if your cornerbacks are playing off on AJ Brown, man, good luck, man, because he's going to catch a short ball. You're going to try to go tackle him. He's going to shrug you off, and he'll rack you to death. I mean, AJ Brown will drop 200 on you, man. He's got that kind of game, man. And honestly, if You play off coverage on Devontae Smith, man, he'll just 12 catch you to death for like 150 and 2 touchdowns if you give him the opportunity to, man. So you got to be on him too. So that's a guy that you want to kind of press, man. With a shiftier receiver, a shiftier cornerback. Not necessarily being physical with him, but just somebody that can stay in his hip pocket and keep with him. Jalen Hurts is playing out of his mind, and running quarterbacks have been a thorn in our back. In the history of this team, man. We still, like I said, missing Chase Young. We're missing some things out there. John Allen's hurt, so we can say whatever about running quarterbacks giving up sacks, man, but they also, they'll also beat you to death if you if you sell out on your spy. If you don't have a spy on them guys, and your pressure ain't getting home, them guys will eat you to death, man. They'll keep a play alive, and then they'll burn you down the field. When you got AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, and all them running out there wide. And that defense, man, big play Slay, James Bradbury, man, they're looking pretty impressive right now, man. So the Commanders are going to have to bring their A game, man. If they come out there with the same first half that they had against Detroit, you can wash this game off too. In the first half, I think this team could handle a shootout with Philly, but they can't get down like that. They can't get down 20 some points. They can't have to try to readjust their game plan because they lost a half of football. They have to readjust quick. It's a divisional game, man. You got to have your homework done on these guys. So I expected much different game, more complete game. I still think Philly wins this game, sadly. But we'll see, man. It won't be because we don't have the talent to at least run with them. It's going to be coaching. It's going to be preparedness. It's going to be health. It's going to be, who wants it more, man. And realistically, man, you're home. You got Wentz, first time playing Philly, man. Honestly, if you guys can't get up for that, honestly, man, I don't know what you're playing football for anyway. So, again, man, this is the Blue Chip Podcast. This is week 2 of the season, man. Breakdown of the Commanders. A little bit of college prospects to throw your way, good and bad, from the Detroit game, and I appreciate you guys stopping by. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Appreciate the time. Thank you guys. Have a good week. Peace.